Right, let's get this straight. Before we had lovely shiny bits of metal rattling in our pockets, how did people in Ireland buy things? You couldn't just tap your phone on a terminal to get a pint of mead. The whole idea of money as we know it didn't exist for ages. Instead, people used a system called barter. That's a fancy word for swapping. You'd trade something you had for something you wanted. It was all very direct, like, I'll give you 3 of my chickens for that rather fetching axe you've got there. It sounds simple, but it could get complicated very quickly. What if the axe maker didn't want chickens? What if he wanted a boat? You'd have to find someone with a spare boat who desperately needed chickens. This system of swapping stuff relied on everyone agreeing what things were worth. In ancient Ireland, the most important unit of value wasn't a coin, it was a cow. Seriously. A cow was the ultimate status symbol, the top-of-the-range sports car of its day. The old Irish laws, the Brehon laws, are full of references to fines and payments being made in cattle. If you did something wrong, you might have to pay a fine of 1, which was the value of a female slave, which itself was equal to 3 cows. Everything, from land to legal penalties, was measured in livestock. So, your wealth wasn't in a bank, it was mooing in a field somewhere, which is a lot harder to lose down the back of the sofa. Of course, you couldn't carry a cow into the market to buy a loaf of bread. Well, you'd buy, but it would be very messy and you'd get terrible change. So for smaller, everyday transactions, people used other things. They might have used grain, cloth, or tools as a form of currency. Ring money was also a big deal. These were pieces of gold, silver, or bronze shaped into rings or bracelets. They weren't coins because they didn't have a standard weight or a picture stamped on them by a king. Instead, their value was based on the weight of the metal. You could chop a bit off a bigger ring to pay for something small. It was a bit like having a wearable bar of gold you could chip away at. This whole barter and commodity system worked for a very long time. It was built on trust and community agreement. People knew the value of a good cloak, a strong pot, or a healthy animal. They didn't need a monarch's face on a piece of metal to tell them what something was worth. It was a practical solution for a society based on farming and close-knit tribes. The idea of a universal, portable, and standardized form of money would take a while to catch on. It would require new people with new ideas to arrive on Ireland's shores, bringing with them the revolutionary concept of the coin. And that, as we'll see, changed everything. So, when did Ireland get its first proper coins? Well, it's a bit of a blurry picture. The ancient Celts in Europe were copying Greek and Roman coins, but the Irish Celts didn't really mint their own. They were happy enough with their cows and gold rings, thank you very much. The first coins to actually show up in Ireland in any significant numbers were Roman ones, brought over through trade. But these weren't used as money in the way we'd understand it. They were more like exotic curiosities, bits of foreign bling. An Irish chieftain might have worn a Roman coin as a pendant, not to buy his groceries, but to show off how well-travelled and important he was. The real game changer was the Vikings. When these lads turned up in the 9th century, they weren't just interested in raiding monasteries, they were massive traders. They established cities like Dublin, Waterford and Limerick, and with them came the Viking obsession with silver. They loved silver, they used it for everything. They brought with them a whole new economic system based on weight. They used hack silver, chopped up bits of silver jewellery, ingots and foreign coins, which was weighed out on small scales for every transaction. It was a step up from bartering cows because silver was much more portable and divisible, but it still wasn't proper coinage. The first coins to be properly made Ireland were minted by a Viking king of Dublin, Sitrick Silkbeard, around the year 997. He'd probably been to England and seen the organised way the Anglo-Saxons were producing coins and thought, I'll have a bit of that. So, a mint was set up in Dublin, and they started producing silver pennies. These weren't exactly original works of art, mind you. They were basically copies of English pennies from the time, featuring the head of the English king, Ethelred the Unready. Celtic just put his own name on it. It was like buying a knockoff designer handbag and stitching your own label inside. These Hiberno Norse coins, as they're called, became the first widespread currency in Ireland. They were thin silver discs, stamped with a simple design. One side usually had a crude portrait of a king, and the other side often had a symbol like a cross. The quality could be a bit iffy, and they were copied over and over again, with each copy getting a little bit worse, a little more abstract. It's like photocopying a photocopy 100 times. By the end, the king's head looked less like a person and more like a confused spider. But they served their purpose, allowing for easier trade in the new, bustling towns the Vikings had built. Then, in 1169, another bunch of lads turned up, the Normans. And if there's one thing the Normans loved, it was organising things. They built castles, they created laws, and they definitely wanted to sort out the money situation. The Viking coins were a bit of a mess by this point. So the new Norman Lord of Ireland, who would soon be King John of England, decided it was time for a proper, official currency. He ordered the first Anglo-Irish coins to be struck around 1185. This was a big step. It wasn't just a local Viking king copying someone else's money anymore. This was the official currency of the new rulers. These first Norman coins were silver pennies and halfpennies minted in Dublin. A key feature of these early coins was the design. On one side, you had the face of the king, or in this case, the Lord of Ireland, looking straight at you inside a triangle. This triangle design was unique to Ireland and makes these coins, known as John as Lord coinage, really easy to spot. On the other side was a cross, which was handy because it made it easy to cut the penny into halves or quarters, farthings, for smaller change. People would literally snip the coin with shears along the lines of the cross. It was a built-in cut-here guide for making change. As the Normans cemented their control, they opened more mints in other towns like Waterford, Limerick and Kilkenny. Having multiple mints was a way of showing who was in charge across the country. The coins produced were meant to be the same standard as the English sterling penny, but often they were made with a little less silver. This was a sneaky way for the king to make a profit. It meant that Irish money was often valued less than English money, a theme that would continue for centuries. People in England weren't keen on accepting Irish coins at face value, which caused all sorts of headaches for merchants. King John's coins set the standard for the next couple of hundred years. Later kings, like Henry III and the Edwards, continued to issue coins for Ireland. The designs didn't change all that much. You still had the king's head in a triangle on one side and a long cross on the other. The main difference was the name of the king stamped on the coin. For coin collectors, telling these apart is all about looking at the tiny details in the portrait and the lettering. For the average person at the time, though, the important thing was that it was silver and it was accepted in the local market. It was the official money, and it was here to stay. Fast forward a couple of centuries. By the time the Tudors are on the throne in England, things are getting a bit more interesting for Irish coins. The old design of a king's head in a triangle had been going for a while and was getting a bit tired. Henry VIII, a man not known for his subtlety, decided to make a big statement. In 1534, he issued a new type of coin for Ireland, the groat, which was worth 4 pence. And on the back of this coin, for the very first time, he placed the image of a harp. This was a massive deal. The harp was already a powerful symbol of Ireland, representing its ancient Gaelic culture and traditions. Putting the harp on the official coin was a clever political move. On one hand, it was a way of acknowledging Ireland's unique identity, but on the other, It was a symbol of control. The coin still had the English king's coat of arms on the other side. The message was clear. Yes, this is Ireland, but I'm the one in charge of it. Henry VIII even declared himself King of Ireland in 1541, breaking from the old title, Lord of Ireland. The harp on the coins reinforced this new relationship. From that moment on, the harp became the enduring official symbol of the Irish state on its money, a tradition that continues to this very day on Irish euro coins. Now, Henry VIII and his children had a bit of a habit of messing with the coinage to pay for their wars and extravagant lifestyles. This was especially true for Ireland. Henry issued coins known as debased coinage, which means they looked like silver but were actually made mostly of cheaper metals like copper, with just a thin wash of silver on the outside. After a bit of use, the silver would rub off, especially on the highest point of the design, which was usually the king's nose. This earned Henry the nickname Old Copper Nose. People weren't stupid. They knew they were being ripped off, and this dodgy money caused a lot of economic problems. This tradition of having separate and often worse money for Ireland continued for a long time. The designs changed with each monarch. Queen Elizabeth I issued shillings and groats with her portrait, always with the harp on the reverse. King James I did the same. The coins acted as a constant reminder of who was on the throne over in London. But the harp remained constant. It had been co-opted from a symbol of Gaelic Ireland into the official emblem of the English-ruled Kingdom of Ireland. It was a symbol with a double meaning, part national pride, part royal authority. Now, if you think Old Copper-Nose and his debased coins were bad, you haven't heard about gun money. This is probably the most famous or, well, infamous episode in Irish coinage history. It all happened during the Williamite War in Ireland, between 1689 and 1691. You had two kings fighting for the throne. The Catholic King James II, who had been kicked out of England, and the Protestant King William of Orange, who had replaced him. James II fled to Ireland to rally support and, try to win back his kingdom. The only problem was, he was completely broke. He had an army to pay, but no gold or silver to mint coins with. So, James and his advisors came up with a brilliantly desperate, or maybe desperately brilliant idea. They decided to make money out of whatever metal they could find. This meant melting down old cannons, church bells, broken pots, and brass fittings. Basically, anything that wasn't nailed down. This is why it's called gun money. They produced shillings, half-crowns, and crowns from this brass and copper. These coins looked impressive enough, but their actual metal value was, honestly, virtually nothing. They were essentially tokens, worthless in themselves, but they came with a royal promise. The promise was this: when James won the war and was back on his throne in London, he would exchange all this brass gun money for proper gold and silver coins. To make this work, the coins were dated with the month as well as the year they were minted. This was so that people who were paid first would get their real money first when the time came. It was a massive gamble, a financial system based entirely on the hope of a military victory. People were forced to accept this money for goods and services. If you refused, you could be in serious trouble. For a short time it worked, and James was able to keep his army funded. Of course, as history tells us, James II did not win the war. He was defeated at the Battle of the Boyne in 1690 and fled back to France. Suddenly, all that gun money was worthless. The promise was broken. People who had sacks of it, who had been paid their life savings in it, were left with nothing but piles of useless brass tokens. It caused economic ruin for thousands of his supporters. Today, gun money coins are very common and not particularly valuable, because so many were made. But they tell an incredible story of war, desperation, and a financial system built entirely on a promise that was never kept. After the chaos of gun money and the Williamite War, things settled down a bit, monetarily speaking. For the next century or so, Ireland continued to have its own coins, but they were firmly under British control. Copper halfpennies and farthings were issued for Ireland during the reigns of the George. These coins were pretty standard. The king's head on one side, and the crowned harp on the other. The harp was now completely established as the symbol for Ireland, but it was always shown with a crown on top, just to reinforce who was boss. The coins were, as usual, made to a slightly lower weight standard than their British counterparts. However, by the late 1700s and early 1800s, there was a massive shortage of official small change all over Britain and Ireland. The Royal Mint just wasn't producing enough coins for the growing economy of the Industrial Revolution. To fill the gap, a huge number of private tokens appeared. Big companies, factory owners and merchants started minting their own copper tokens to pay their workers and give out as change. These weren't official money, but they were widely accepted because people were desperate for coins of any kind. These tokens often had interesting designs, showing the name of the business or a picture of the local factory or mine. This messy situation came to a head with the Act of Union in 1801, which formally joined the Kingdom of Ireland with the Kingdom of Great Britain. For the first 20 years, Ireland kind of kept its own currency system, with Irish pennies still being different from British ones. But it was confusing. The exchange rate was 13 Irish pennies to 12 British pence, or 1 British shilling. This made doing business between the two islands a nightmare of constant calculations. Imagine having to work out a different price for everything depending on which side of the Irish Sea you were on. It was a recipe for headaches. Finally, in 1826, the government decided to end the confusion. They completely abolished the Irish currency and merged it with the British sterling. From that year until Ireland gained its independence a century later, there were no more separate Irish coins. Ireland simply used the same pounds, shillings and pence as England, Scotland and Wales. The Irish harp disappeared from the money in people's pockets, only appearing on some bank crests or as a small symbol on some British coins. For nearly 100 years, the distinct story of Irish coinage went silent, absorbed into the larger currency of the United Kingdom. After the War of Independence and the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty, the Irish Free State was established in 1922. One of the most powerful ways for a new country to show its independence is to issue its own money. A committee was set up, chaired by the poet W.B. Yeats, to decide what the new coins should look like. Yeats was determined that the coins should be beautiful works of art, a world away from the stuffy portraits of monarchs that had dominated for so long. He wanted the coins to reflect Ireland's culture, but in a modern and elegant way. He declared they should be elegant, racy of the soil, and utterly Irish. The committee made a brilliant decision. They decided that one side of every coin would feature the Irish harp, the ancient symbol of the nation, now free of the British crown that had sat on top of it for centuries. For the other side, instead of political leaders or abstract symbols, they chose to feature animals that were important to Ireland's agricultural economy and countryside. This was a stroke of genius. It connected the new currency directly to the lives of ordinary people. The designs were put out to competition, and the winner was an English artist, Percy Metcalfe. His designs are now considered masterpieces of 20th century coinage. The set of coins, first issued in 1928, became instantly famous. The farthing had a woodcock, the halfpenny a pig with piglets, and the penny a hen with her chicks. The threepence featured a hare, the sixpence a wolfhound, and the shilling a bull. The florin, worth 2 shillings, showed a salmon, and the half-crown depicted a magnificent horse. These weren't just coins. They were a miniature art gallery celebrating Irish nature and rural life. They were a powerful statement of a new, peaceful and agricultural-focused national identity. The coins were given the nickname the Barnyard Set, and people loved them. These beautiful designs were so successful and so popular that they remained on Irish coins for over 70 years. The words on the coins were also significant. Instead of Latin, the coins were inscribed in Irish. One side read Saorstat Erean, which was later changed to just Air in 1938 after the new constitution was adopted. The value of the coin was written out, for example, Leath Roll for a sixpence. These coins were more than just money. They were a declaration of cultural and political independence, circulated in the pockets and purses of every citizen. For decades, the beloved animal coins served Ireland well, but the world of money was changing. The old British-style system of pounds, shillings and pence was complicated. There were 12 pence in a shilling and 20 shillings in a pound. Doing any kind of arithmetic was a bit of a mental workout. Most of the world had moved to a decimal system, where the currency was based on units of 100, which is much simpler. In 1969, the Irish government passed the Decimal Currency Act, paving the way for Ireland to go decimal along with the UK. The day it all changed was called Decimal Day, on 15th February 1971. This was a massive change for everyone. The old penny and threepence were withdrawn. New coins were introduced, the halfpenny, 1 penny and 2 pence. Percy Metcalfe's animal designs were so loved that the government decided to keep them, but they were adapted for the new coins by the artist Gabriel Hayes. The new designs featured ornamental birds, inspired by illustrations in ancient Irish manuscripts. So the new halfpenny had a bird, the 1 penny had another, and the 2 pence had a third, all in a beautiful Celtic style. The bigger coins, the 5 pence and 10 pence, were the same size and value as the old shilling and florin, so they kept their original salmon and bull designs for a while. Beyond the everyday coins, Ireland also dipped its toe into the world of special commemorative coins. These are coins made to mark a special event or anniversary, often produced in precious metals like silver and gold. In 1966, for example, Ireland issued a special 10-shilling coin to mark the 50th anniversary of the 1916 Easter Rising. It was Ireland's first commemorative coin and was made of silver. It featured the image of the dying hero Cú Chulainn on one side, a powerful symbol of Irish mythology and sacrifice, with the harp on the other. This started a tradition of issuing special coins for collectors. Ireland even produced its own gold coins, though they were never intended for circulation. These were called Air Gold Punts, first issued in the 1990s. They were made for investors and collectors and featured beautiful designs, often drawing on Celtic art or Irish history. For example, one popular design featured a red deer, an animal with deep roots in Irish mythology. These special issues, from the Easter Rising silver coin to the gold punts, showed a growing confidence in Ireland's identity and its place in the world, capable of producing not just everyday money, but also high-quality collector's items. The biggest change to Irish money since independence came at the dawn of the 21st century. As a member of the European Union, Ireland decided to join the single currency project, the euro. This meant saying goodbye to the Irish pound, or punt, which had been the nation's currency in one form or another for over 70 years. The changeover happened on January 1st, 2002. It was a huge logistical operation. Suddenly, every price in every shop was listed in 2 currencies, and people had to get used to a whole new set of coins and notes. For a few weeks, both punts and euros were accepted, which led to a lot of confused fumbling in shops. When a country joins the euro, it gets to design its own national side for the coins. The other side, the common side, is the same for all countries and shows a map of Europe. For its national design, Ireland made a simple and powerful choice. It decided that every single one of its euro coins, from the 1 cent piece to the 2 euro coin, would feature the same image, the Irish harp. This was the ultimate tribute to the symbol that had been on Irish money since the days of Henry VIII. The design chosen was the classic Trinity College harp, accompanied by the word heir and the year of minting. This decision meant that the famous animal designs of Percy Metcalfe were finally retired from circulating coinage. After more than 7 decades, the salmon, the horse and the wolfhound disappeared from people's pockets. While many were sad to see them go, the choice of the harp was a fitting one. It is a symbol that is instantly recognisable as Irish all over the world. When you get a euro coin in your change in Spain or Germany and see the harp, you know immediately that it started its journey in Ireland. The coins are a small but constant reminder of Ireland's membership in the wider European family. Today, the Central Bank of Ireland continues to issue these euro coins. They also produce special commemorative 2 euro coins, which can be used just like normal money. These are made to celebrate significant events or anniversaries, both Irish and European. For example, Ireland has issued special 2 euro coins to mark the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Easter Rising and the centenary of the first Dáil Éireann. These coins bring a bit of history into everyday transactions, reminding people of the journey Ireland has taken, from ancient bartering systems to its place at the heart of modern Europe, with its ancient harp symbol still proudly on display.